Touch your chest, Roland. Then you'll understand why we need to talk. The sentence cut cleanly through the haze, sharper than pain, sharper than memory. It was the first coherent thought to reach me after an endless stretch of murky nothingness. The voice was steady, masculine, and heavy with something unspoken that tightened my gut. My eyes snapped open. Blinding white light. Rectangular ceiling tiles. The antiseptic sting of disinfectant. A hospital. Instantly, fragments rushed back, streetlights blurring into streaks of color, a horn screaming too close, the violent jolt of metal folding in on itself. Then darkness. I tried to lift myself, but my head pulsed viciously, and a low sound escaped my throat before I could stop it. That was when I noticed it. The weight. It wasn't pressure from a device or a blanket. It moved when I did. It belonged to me. A soft, unfamiliar fullness pulling against the thin fabric stretched over my torso. My breath stalled halfway in. The hospital gown felt wrong, too tight, too noticeable. The fabric brushed my skin with an almost electric sensitivity that made my stomach twist. Every nerve seemed awake in a way it never had been before. I turned my head. A man sat beside the bed in a white coat, his posture careful, his expression worn with quiet regret. His badge read Dr. Patel. What's happening? My voice sounded raw, scraped dry. Why does my chest feel like this? He leaned forward, fingers interlaced, studying me like someone delivering bad news he wished he didn't have to give. Roland, you were in a severe accident, he said gently. You've been in a medically induced coma for several weeks while we stabilized your condition. Weeks barely registered. My mind was locked onto the wrongness radiating from my body. My hand shook as I raised it. I hesitated, hovering inches above my chest, terrified of what I already knew I'd find. Then my fingers made contact. Soft. Flesh that yielded beneath my touch. Rounded. Sensitive. Not swelling. Not injury. A breast. My heart slammed violently against my ribs. I ripped my hand away like I'd touched a hot surface. No, I whispered, shaking my head. That's not possible. What did you do to me? Dr. Patel exhaled slowly. We didn't intend for this to happen. My pulse roared in my ears. There was a critical administrative failure, he continued. Your medical file was mistakenly merged with another patient's during a system transition. While you were unconscious, you were given prolonged, high-dose estrogen therapy. The word echoed in my skull. Estrogen. The opposite of everything I was. I was 19. A starting guard on the varsity team. Grease under my nails from weekends spent restoring my dad's Mustang. This wasn't me. This couldn't be me. The dosage was substantial, he said quietly. By the time the error was discovered, the physiological changes were already underway. My voice cracked. So stop it. Reverse it. Give me testosterone. Do something. Fear crawled up my spine, cold and sharp. It isn't that simple, he said. A sudden reversal could cause severe endocrine shock, cardiac issues, organ failure. We have to be extremely careful. I tore the blanket aside. The body beneath the gown barely resembled the one I remembered. Curves where there shouldn't be any. A narrower waist. Hips that flared just enough to be unmistakable. Skin smoother than I'd ever seen it. A stranger stared back at me. So this is it. I shouted. I go to sleep as a guy and wake up as, what? Dr. Patel had no answer. He just sat there, watching as my world collapsed in real time. I shut my eyes, but the sensations wouldn't disappear, the weight on my chest, the hypersensitive skin, the unfamiliar rhythm of my own heartbeat. This body didn't feel like mine anymore. I wasn't Roland. I was evidence of a mistake that couldn't be undone. Leaving the hospital didn't feel like freedom. It felt like relocation, from one cage to another. The final assessment was blunt: the feminization was, for all practical purposes, irreversible without risking my life. The settlement followed. An obscene amount of money meant to compensate for something that couldn't be bought back. For future care, they called it. Blood money. My parents drove me home without speaking. My mother kept checking the rearview mirror, her eyes soft and shattered all at once. My father's hand stayed locked on the wheel, knuckles pale. When we reached my room, the reality hit harder than any diagnosis. It was a museum to someone who no longer existed. Basketball posters. Muscle cars. Weights stacked in the corner. Clothes folded neatly, jeans, hoodies, band shirts, all sized for a body I no longer inhabited. Even the smell felt wrong. I stood there, wearing borrowed sweatpants and a t-shirt from the hospital, feeling like an intruder in my own life. Pulling on my old clothes wasn't an option. They wouldn't sit right. They'd only remind me of what I'd lost. That evening, there was a soft knock. My mom stepped in, holding a small paper bag. She set it gently on the bed without meeting my eyes. "I bought a few things," she said quietly. "Just to help you feel more comfortable. Until we figure out what comes next." Neither of us knew what that meant. My pulse thudded hard enough to hurt. I already knew what was inside the bag, and the certainty filled me with dread. Whatever it was, it marked another point of no return, another piece of the life I'd lost. My fingers hesitated before finally dipping inside. Folded neatly were a few soft t-shirts, plainer than my old ones and cut closer to the body. Beneath them lay a small, gray garment that made my stomach drop. A sports bra. Heat rushed to my face, sharp and humiliating. I felt exposed just looking at it. "It's just for support," my mom said quickly, words tumbling over each other. "The doctor said it might help with the soreness." It's not anything fancy. Just practical." She didn't wait for my response. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me alone with the thing resting on my bed like a quiet accusation. I stared at it for a long time. It looked harmless. Ordinary. And yet it felt like a symbol of defeat. Still, my body ached constantly. The new weight on my chest was tender and oversensitive, every movement sending dull pulses of discomfort through me. My shirts rubbed in ways that made me wince. My hands trembled as I picked the bra up. The fabric was soft, elastic, warm from my palms. I pulled my t-shirt over my head, deliberately turning my back to the mirror on my closet door. I couldn't face my reflection. I turned the bra over and over, trying to understand how it worked, like reading instructions written in a language I didn't know. Eventually, awkwardly, I slipped it over my head and fumbled my arms through the straps. The band settled beneath my chest, snug and unfamiliar, wrapping my ribs in a firm embrace that made me tense. Then something unexpected happened. The aching eased. Not vanished, but softened. The pressure became steady instead of sharp. The constant irritation faded into a manageable hum. My body relaxed without my permission. The relief made my stomach churn. I hated that this helped. Hated that my body responded so readily. Hated the smoothness of the fabric against my skin. My mind recoiled in disgust even as my body accepted it with quiet gratitude. I yanked one of the new t-shirts on quickly, like I could erase the moment by covering it up. The shirt clung differently than my old clothes ever had, tracing curves I didn't want to acknowledge. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror before I could stop it. The reflection looked like a faded echo of Roland, softer, paler, eyes wide with fear. A stranger wearing my face. Dinner that night was unbearable. My dad didn't look up from his plate. I could almost hear the thoughts he wasn't saying, the words he couldn't figure out how to use. I wasn't his son anymore, but I wasn't anything else he understood either. I pushed food around my plate, hyper-aware of everything, the way the fabric stretched across my chest, the way my thighs pressed together when I shifted in my chair. Every sensation felt amplified, trapping me inside my own skin. I was home, yet I'd never felt more displaced. The days that followed blurred together into sterile offices and careful conversations. Doctors spoke in calm, measured tones, outlining risks and probabilities like they were discussing weather patterns instead of my life. Reversal, they said, was dangerous. Unstable. Potentially fatal. The safest option wasn't resistance, it was adaptation. They called it transition management. To me, it sounded like a sentence handed down without a trial. The settlement included legal help. That was when the paperwork started. Licenses. Certificates. Records. Every document that had ever declared Roland Taylor male now conflicted with reality. The dining table became a battlefield of forms and signatures. One afternoon, my mom sat beside me, hands clasped tight. "We have to update your legal name," she said softly. "The lawyers need something to put on the documents." My mind went blank. A new name felt like losing the last limb I had left. "I don't care," I muttered, staring out the window. "Pick whatever." "It does matter," she said gently. "It's yours. My name is Roland." The words burned. Roland was the boy with a deep voice and broad shoulders. Roland was the one who planned his future in jump shots and engine grease. Whoever lived in this body wasn't him. The next day, she came back with a suggestion. "Rosalie," she said quietly. "It's close. And it means rose." The name felt wrong in my head, tight, unfamiliar, like clothes that didn't fit. But I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. "Fine," I whispered. With a pen stroke, Roland Taylor ceased to exist. The first time I heard it spoken aloud, it stunned me. "Rosalie, dinner's ready," my mom called from downstairs. My body locked up. For a split second, I wanted to scream that she had it wrong, that my name was Roland. But the protest died before it reached my lips. Who was I arguing with? My own reflection contradicted me daily. I went downstairs. Walking felt different now, my awareness heightened, my movements more careful. My hips shifted in ways I didn't consciously control. My mom had tried to compromise with my clothes, soft pants, neutral shirts, nothing overtly feminine. There was a skirt folded on my bed I hadn't touched. At the table, she smiled at me, hopeful and fragile. "How are you feeling, Rosalie?" I couldn't say the name yet. I just nodded. Days became weeks. The name stopped feeling like a slap and started feeling like a bruise, always there, dull but persistent. I still mourned, but curiosity crept in where fury used to live. I began to look at my reflection instead of flinching away. One afternoon, driven by that quiet curiosity, I picked up the skirt. The fabric was light and cool. I changed with my back to the mirror, pulling it on and feeling the waistband settle at my waist. It felt different. Exposed and free at the same time. When I finally turned, the image unsettled me. Not a boy. Not quite a girl. Something suspended between. I whispered the name to the reflection. "Rosalie." She didn't object. Then came Tyler. He'd been texting for weeks. My mom finally insisted I stop hiding. When the doorbell rang, my heart nearly burst. I stood upstairs, sweating, dressed in fitted joggers and a soft shirt. My hair had grown out, framing my face in unfamiliar ways. Tyler's voice echoed up the stairs. He stopped when he saw me. Shock flickered across his face, his eyes tracing changes he didn't know how to name. The silence stretched until it hurt. Hey, I said weakly. He swallowed, then stepped forward. If you're still you, he said quietly, that's enough. Something inside me loosened. Outside, we shot hoops like we always had. Everything felt off, my balance, my strength, my timing. My body didn't move the way it used to. Tyler didn't tease me. He just passed the ball back. When I stumbled, he caught me, hands firm at my waist. Not rough. Careful. The contact lingered a fraction too long. Heat rushed to my face, my breath hitching as something unfamiliar stirred deep inside me, confusion layered over fear, over something I wasn't ready to name. And the world kept moving anyway. The sensation lingered long after his hands pulled away. I'd been shoved, grabbed, slapped on the back, tackled. Friendship had always been loud and physical. But this was something else entirely. Tyler's hands had landed at my waist, not my shoulders, not my arms. They had found me where my body curved inward now, where it narrowed and softened. It felt protective. For the first time, I hadn't felt like Roland being steadied by a buddy. I felt small. Caught. Held. And what terrified me most was this: I didn't recoil from it. In that suspended second, balanced between falling and standing, it hadn't felt humiliating. It hadn't felt like weakness. It had simply felt good. Safe. Tyler withdrew immediately, awareness flashing across his face as if he'd startled himself. He cleared his throat and stepped back. You okay? Yeah, I said, my voice lighter than I expected. I'm fine. We kept playing, but the rhythm was broken. Something invisible had shifted between us. Tyler tried, God, he tried, to act normal, to treat me like the same guy he'd grown up with. But that unconscious gesture had betrayed the truth. He didn't see me the same way anymore. And standing there, skin still buzzing where he'd touched me, I realized something even more unsettling. Maybe I didn't either. After Tyler left, the world grew quieter. Not peaceful, just muted. The rage that had lived in my chest for months dulled into something hollow and echoing. His acceptance hadn't fixed anything, but it had cracked the shell I'd built around myself. Alone in my room, curiosity crept in where anger used to live. I started with my hair. It had grown long enough to fall into my eyes, an annoyance Roland would have solved with clippers. But Roland wasn't here anymore. One afternoon, I found a hair tie on the bathroom counter. It took forever, arms aching, fingers clumsy, but eventually I managed a crooked ponytail. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Pulling my hair back revealed things I'd never noticed before: the curve of my neck, the gentle slope of my jaw, the softness in my expression. I looked intentional. Less like a ghost drifting through someone else's life. I wore it that way all day, the cool air on my neck oddly comforting. That small success gave me courage. The makeup my mom had left untouched for weeks finally called to me. I experimented, badly at first. Mascara smudged. Concealer blended unevenly. But when I stepped back, my reflection surprised me. I didn't look transformed. I looked awake. My eyes, framed darker and wider, held a depth I hadn't seen before. Pretty. The word startled me, but it didn't feel like a lie. This wasn't Roland pretending. This was Rosalie beginning to emerge. Clothes were the last frontier. My closet held compromises: joggers, sweaters, oversized hoodies. But among them hung unfamiliar silhouettes. Dresses. Jeans cut for hips I still didn't understand. One rainy afternoon, I chose a simple navy dress, soft, unassuming. Pulling it on felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. The fabric draped where it wanted to, defining curves instead of hiding them. When I faced the mirror, my breath caught. The girl looking back was hesitant, unsure, but real. The dress moved when I moved. The hem swayed. Sitting required thought. Standing brought instinctive gestures, smoothing fabric, adjusting posture. I hadn't learned these things. My body knew them already. That day, I wore the dress for hours. Read. Walked. Existed. For the first time since waking up in the hospital, my body and mind weren't at war. I was still grieving. Still afraid. But curiosity bloomed. Who was Rosalie? Maybe she wasn't an enemy. Maybe she was just unfamiliar. School was brutal. Whispers followed me like shadows. Stares pressed into my skin. I dressed carefully, neutral, simple, but invisibility was impossible. Jack found me near my locker. His voice cut through the hallway like glass. Laughter followed. I froze. Then Tyler stepped between us. "Back off," he said, calm but dangerous. Jack retreated. Tyler turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded, overwhelmed. He'd called me him. He was trying to protect the version of me I used to be. It was misguided, but kind. PE was worse. Or so I thought. The girls' volleyball court felt like exile, until it didn't. The game pulled me in. Instinct returned. I wasn't strong, but I was smart. I belonged. When someone called me Rosalie without malice, something shifted. When Megan took my hand and welcomed me into the team, something healed. I wasn't valuable because of who I had been. I mattered because of who I was. Prom felt like a cliff edge. But I went. The dress fit perfectly, emerald green, soft and elegant. When I stood ready, my dad looked at me for a long time. "You look happy," he said. That was enough. The ballroom lights sparkled. Music swelled. People smiled, not cruelly, but warmly. I wasn't a spectacle. I was just another girl at prom. When Tyler asked me to dance, I said yes. We swayed, awkward and real. His hand rested gently at my waist. This time, it didn't shock me. It felt right. As he spun me under the lights, laughter rising around us, I understood something profound. I hadn't been erased. I'd been reshaped. I wasn't Roland anymore. I was Rosalie. And for the first time since the crash, I felt whole. Not broken. Not lost. Just me. And I was finally excited to see where my life would go next.